Okay, we're going to get started with Magic Head Coach Steve Clifford. If you'd please raise your hands in the Zoom, I will call on you accordingly. First question goes to Dan Savage from OrlandoMagic.com.
Cliff, with the first day camp officially in the books, what stood out to you and what were your takeaways?
I loved their attitude. I thought the guys worked hard. It's just, it's a lot of organization, and we played a lot. We played, a full quarter of just running, no stopping like regular quarter. And then we also did a bunch of, just kind of transition offense at one end, transition to the other end, we call set, run. And we did a lot of that. And so there was a lot of contact, a lot of organization, which is, to me, it's going to be the trick, because even as talented as these guys are, today's the 4th, we're going to play 23rd probably. And the hardest thing is getting their games in rhythm, even as good as they are. It's a short period of time. Our guys are actually, I think from a conditioning standpoint, the majority of them are pretty good, but even watching them play, they're so far away from being in any sense of rhythm, so that they can play well. So it's gonna, I just don't think that you can worry as much about the details right now. They've got to play, because no matter how much organization you have, if they don't feel good about the way they're playing, just not going to be able to execute anything anyway.
Jamie Say, WKMG.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, how do you go about in these next 3 weeks just getting the guys into rhythm? What's the best way to do that?
I just think you have to play 3-on-3, 5-on-5. We're not gonna, like today, we're gonna drill individual defense, because you have to, because without technique, you have no shot. But other than that, it's going to be more organized and play. Again, especially I believe that coming in, and especially after watching our guys play today. And you got to remember too, now we've had a lot of guys here. So two weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, when the rules allowed it, our guys were playing up and down. So we have a group of guys who have played a ton of 3-on-3 and 4-on-4. It's just, again, I mean, no matter how gifted they are, they need to play. They need to play to get themselves in rhythm.
Josh Robbins, The Athletic.
I'm clearly not that smart, as we all know anyway. How did Chuma and Cole look, considering this was their first NBA practice?
I thought they both did fine. They both had stretches where they made a lot of good plays. I think they both picked things up quickly. They're both smart. They both have a good feel for basketball. I'm excited about both of them. So, and I thought they both did well.
Philip Rossman Reich, Orlando Magic Daily.
You mentioned before the bubble, like so much of what you had to do was just kind of make sure guys are back in conditioning and back in playing. And obviously this is a little bit different because they've been able to work out a little bit in groups beforehand. But how is this experience similar or dissimilar from what you guys had to do to prepare to play in July?
Yeah, I think very similar I think a lot of it, to be honest, Philip, some of it is I think the mental part of the unknown. Particularly when we start to travel and everything, just like until we got to the bubble, I think we were all a little bit wary of what is this going to be like, So I think there's a mental aspect of it. The difference, I would agree with what you said. When we came back last time, the hard thing about the training camp part was guys had been able to be in the gym, but they hadn't been allowed to play and have contact at all. So this time they have. We couldn't this last, I think it was maybe like 7 or 8, 9 days. It was back to just one-on-one workouts. But we had a stretch of time where a lot of our guys were able to play. And so that's made that part easier. And still, compared to a normal training camp, we're Yeah, we're far from away for where most guys normally would be.
As a follow-up to that, do you feel like the teams that were in the bubble then have maybe a little bit of an advantage over the 8 teams that didn't get to go because of how they had to prepare for that?
I would say, to be honest, a significant advantage because, so, you look like, I was talking to Dwayne, so Dwayne, they didn't, he was with Charlotte, he hasn't played since March, 5-on-5. And again, guys can do one-on-one workouts and all that's necessary. And it's a big part of getting better and being conditioned or lift. But, to play well, they've got to have been able to play. And he was saying, like, for him, because he wasn't with us when they were allowed to play the 3-on-3, 4-on-4. He just said to me right there, man, it's been so long since I played. It's going to take some time to just feel like you have your game together. And so I think the teams that were in the bubble, I actually think it's a pretty big advantage.
Thanks, Coach.
Evan Fitzgerald, Fox 35.
Hey, Steve, sort of building off of that, you mentioned it. You have kind of two groups of guys that are coming off a very short off season and guys who then had that long stretch. As you get into the season, how do you manage that for some guys who, have had a lot of basketball recently and are hopping back into it with, a condensed schedule versus the other guys that might have fresher legs because of the longer stretch?
Yeah, I mean, some guys did have a shorter off season, but they also played 13 games. It's not like we came off a grueling, 82 games and then the playoff series. I mean, we had months off. Then we went to the bubble we were in there, I believe, 55 days. So I think that, to be honest, I think they got plenty of rest. I think they were all anxious to get started again. So even though the off season has been different for that group of guys, I certainly don't think, let's put it this way. When we were here, the year we went to the finals and then the next year, the Eastern Conference finals, and we started again, those guys were still tired, and I don't sense any of that, with our group here.
Paul Casanova.
Yeah, hi, Coach. With only 7 days till preseason's coming, how will you run preseason any different than prior years?
Well, I think the biggest difference is we would always scrimmage a lot early anyway, because I think they like it and it's the best way for conditioning and intensity. I think the difference is this time is, again, in my opinion, they so badly need to play and have contact to feel good about where they're at that, we will scrimmage a lot more all the way through this 3 weeks than we normally would. And I think that's the biggest difference.
Let's go back to Dan Savage.
Cliff, for rookies like Cole and Chuma, who over the long-term portion of their career may be able to play multiple positions, in Cole's both guard spots, Chuma, multiple along the wing. How do you approach starting off their career? Do you limit them to one type of role and build from there? Or do you kind of, throw them into it and see what they could do?
Well, I think that, I've told them both, we're going to start with just, Cole's going to be just a point guard for right now. And Chuma today this first stretch, he's going to play just a 4. But watching them, and especially for the way we play, we're pretty, like it's one of the things that Vooch allows us to be is we're pretty, we do a lot of things offensively where they all can play everywhere anyway. Because, like I think when you have a center like him and he's so smart, it gives you a lot of flexibility with what you can do. So I feel like as they progress, I mean, they'll be able to play more than one spot. Well, if we have to limit what we do, again, I think for both of them, Vooch might have to be on the floor for that to work. But I mean, it's definitely doable.
Jamie Say.
How is Chuma's conditioning, and was this some of the most he's been pushed, I guess since he last played basketball in March 2019?
I thought he looked fine. I mean, I haven't obviously had a chance to watch the film yet. and he's really worked though. I mean, and again, he had not a ton of days, but he participated in some of the contact work that the guys were allowed to do 2 or 3 weeks ago. So this wasn't his first time playing live 3-on-3, 4-on-4. He had a few days, not all of them, but a few days where he did that a couple of weeks ago.
Josh Robbins.
The schedule, Steve, will be formally released in about an hour. You probably have seen a draft of it at least, but without giving away details, what are the first things you look at as the head coach when you examine a schedule in terms of what might be obstacles that you and your team have to overcome?
I always look for, there's always every year for every team, there's going to be 3 or 4 times where, travel, West Coast trips, number of back-to-backs, where it's going to be especially challenging. The biggest thing, to be honest, what you learn in this league is you can't overreact to the schedule. I mean, some years you can look at a schedule and say, geez, we should get off to a good start. And then injuries, travel, guys have big games against you. And then you look at stretches where, you think, man, that's going to be difficult. And you hit it right and the other team's not playing as well. So the number one thing in our league is, to me, is you have to find a way for your team to play, and you've got to have total buy-in on that. And, I think that continuity has to be a big part of that for us. And then I think also as the season goes on, I really think that with the younger players that we've added, I really think we can have quality depth, which has been was a big problem last year. And it may take a while, but I like, when I look at these guys today or, study what they did in college, and Dwayne's a part of that too, is I feel good about what those guys can become and how they can help us.
Any other questions for Coach Clifford? Okay, thanks, Cliff.
Thank you. Hey, Josh, right on